Amy Parker. I'm originally from Stoke-on-Trent. I have been working as an actor for like 10 years. I went to Rose Bruford and Tram. I've done shows like Tokyo Rose and Ride. And yeah, based in East London. And that's me, basically.
And for anyone who doesn't know what Beautiful Little Fool is, what can you tell me about the show, please?
Great. So the show is about the lives of F. Scott Fitzgerald, who was the famous novelist who wrote Great Gatsby and many others, and his wife Zelda, that is told through the eyes of their adult daughter Scotty Fitzgerald, who was their only child. And it's a really interesting angle about their lives because she goes to visit what are the family archives, which are a real place that actually exist. And then it's through Scotty's eyes that we kind of learn about this roller coaster of a life that they lived, and also eventually the demise of both her mum and her dad, and the impact of being raised by these pretty incredible but chaotic human beings. So it's sort of a whirlwind tour of their life through Scotty's eyes.
And as you say, you've joined the show kind of late on to be chucked on to take over the role. What has that kind of process been like for you? What was that kind of moment like when you heard you going on, taking over the role, and then doing it, I suppose?
Yeah, it was wild. So I mean, I've been with the show right since the beginning of rehearsals, but I was originally rehearsing in my understudy track, which was the female ensemble part, which now Jasmine has taken over. Um, and yeah, it was pretty crazy, really. The first week was very adrenaline fueled, pretty high octane, um, but a real gift because the part is a real gift, and it's a really knotty, like complex woman that Zelda is. And I'd had no understudy ever feels that they have enough rehearsal time, but I had rehearsal time, and being in rehearsals every week and watching like Lauren and Dave and Hannah work was just such a masterclass. I mean, me and Jasmine would sort of sit at the side sometimes, like quietly weeping and pinching ourselves. So I do feel like all the really hard groundwork was sort of laid during those weeks for me to then run on. Um, but yeah, it was a lot. It was very high octane, but like a very it was a blessing, and also it was a really emotional week because we as a company felt so like devastated for Hannah. Like the show doesn't exist without her. The seed of the idea came to her one day, and she wrote this beautiful album which has now since been developed into this full stage version. So we just all felt so devastated that it had happened and gutted that I think all we could do in that week was basically like rally around and try and do her work justice. That was very much the focus. So as much as like my personal anxieties about, oh my god, what if I fall down the stairs, or what if I forget my lines, are always were there. I think having that perspective like allowed us to sort of zoom out a bit and focus on what was important, which was just telling the story and being together. And yeah, a huge honor for me, really, because I just to be trusted to do it. They could have gone another way, and like Mark, Michael, Hannah, everybody sort of trusted me to do it, and that felt it was not enough to maybe silence all my own anxieties, and when you get thrown on, but it was enough to slightly just turn the volume down and just say, okay, let's do this, let's do it for Hannah, let's do it for the company, let's get the show on. And yeah.
And as you say, you've been in the rehearsal room anyway, so you've kind of familiar a little bit with it. But how do
Yeah.
you process like I know you say you did some understudy runs.
Yeah.
How do you even just go on like last minute to do it? I don't know. How's that even work in your mind?
It's really hard. So like when I got to the start, I haven't done a great deal of covering as well, I have to say, in my career. So when I got to rehearsals, and I was understudying both Scotty's character and Zelda's character, and when I got there and I realized how much of it was Scotty and Zelda, either together or individually, I was like, okay,
Yeah.
this is going to be a lot of work. Let's lock in. Um, and yeah, there was definitely days, especially because I was on stage in my ensemble track anyway. So I wasn't able to always like sit out and watch and take very thorough notes. So I was sort of like everything was being drip fed when I could, when I had the bandwidth to basically like pay attention to what they were doing. But there was definitely days in rehearsals where I kind of wished that I had three sets of eyes and three sets of hands to sort of have all bases covered. But at a certain point as well, you just have to trust that it will get done. There's a whole room of people here who will help you. And it was a really, really wonderfully generous rehearsal room. Hannah, Mona, the writer, Michael, everybody was so generous with their time, and like you could go to them and ask them anything, whether that was a real life question about what did Zelda do at that time, or whether it was about something logistical in terms of I could go to the assistant director Dylan and be like, where does she stand during that bit? So my notes were accurate. Like it was a really generous space. I never really felt on my own in the task, which was nice and which made life a lot easier. Yeah, I'm waffling now. What was the other part of your question?
I guess just how do you then build your own version? Because you've not got the time necessarily to do that because you're so last minute chucked on. How do you kind of build your own version of Zelda?
Yeah, I think you always do because I'm always it's my opinion that an actor should cover the role, not a human, which I don't think in musical theatre is the general rule, especially for some of the bigger shows. And I get why, but as an actor and as a creative person, like I feel like I'm covering a role, not a human. And I think that was also very much encouraged. At no stage was I expected to do X, Y, and Z just because that's what had been done, which I was really, really grateful for, and was a real luxury considering the time. But you do the work at home. Honestly, you just do the work at home when you can. I personally do a lot of table work. And I did a fair bit of research as well, because as soon as I got to rehearsals, I was aware that everybody had been working on this in New York for some time. And I wanted to like have my own grasp on who these people were really, but without getting bogged down in it. And Michael was very generous. He said, like, you don't have to do any of that. You can just meet these humans like on the page of the script that Mona has written and bring them to life from that. If that's what you want to do, that's also valid. So yeah, did a lot of research, did a lot of table work at home, but it's acting's a contact sport, so it doesn't matter how many times you do it to the four walls of your bedroom. It's just a different beast when you're out there on stage with somebody. So I felt like for the first 2.5 weeks, I was kind of live rehearsing a show because, and not in terms of the broad brushstrokes, because all the scaffolding was there to support me in doing the show exactly as it should have been done. But in terms of these tiny little things that you find when you're working with another actor for the 4 weeks or 5 weeks of rehearsals, these tiny nuances or impulses were sort of coming to me. So like my head still feels a bit like a popcorn machine. Sometimes I'm still like lying down to sleep at night and I'm like, oh yeah, that thing happened today. Oh, that's really interesting. So it's been a mad ride of like rehearsing a show live in these
Yeah.
tiny, minute details. But thrilling and a real lesson in yeah, like just trusting our instincts. And I'm so lucky that we have the company that we have because
Yeah.
everybody is such a gem. And I never felt at any stage worried about how anything would go because I knew that if I fluffed up or if I missed an entrance, there would be a whole team of people being like there at hand to help me. So that made the job infinitely easier than it might have been, which I'm so grateful for.
And then do you prepare any differently when I know you touched on the research there? Do you prepare any differently when you're playing someone that kind of was a real person as opposed to a fictionalized character?
Yeah, I think I do. Every actor's different, but I definitely like doing research about the real person. And even if it's a fictional person, if it's a person that's like living in a different time period to me, I will still research about that because I don't know what it was like to live in 1856 or whatever. But I've done a lot of shows about real women, which I find was like an interesting theme in my like CV. I did a show called Ride, which was about Annie Londonderry, who was the first woman to cycle around the world. We did a show about Iva Taguri, who was like named Tokyo Rose, and the show was called Tokyo Rose. We did a show about her, and now this really about Zelda and Scotty and F. So, yeah, I do like to do research because I feel like it gives you some really lovely nuggets to play with. But I'm not precious about. I'm certainly not one of those actors that like, oh, it has to be this way because she definitely did this. Like, take what is useful to you, and then you can discard the rest as long as the room's happy with that. But yeah.
And on the flip side of this kind of whole experience, you've been critically acclaimed for your performance, which is obviously thrilling. How do you kind of sit back? Obviously, you're still in the show now, but how do you kind of reflect on the last few weeks for what you kind of learned and the journey going forwards from after this show, I suppose?
Oh gosh, that's a great question. I think because the first week I was still so in work mode, I didn't really have a great deal of brain space to look at reviews or to take it in. I was obviously incredibly relieved that they didn't say the understudy was terrible.
Yeah.
That was, but I mean, with reviews, you try not to pay a great deal of attention to it anyway. All I really care about is if on the night the audience have had a great time and they whether that's that they're moved and emotional or they've left with an earworm. I really care about what we do like on the stage that night and how the audience feels. So yeah, it was very nice that it was received very well. And maybe just a lesson in trusting myself, I suppose, and like being able to do difficult things. Yeah, because I think, but obviously, when I knew it was happening, I was like, "Holy heck! How am I going to do this?" And again, the worry of really, really deeply wanting to, because I care about the piece, like wanting to do it justice, and you have your own insecurities, and watching Hannah and Lauren and Dave work, like I say, was honestly a masterclass. So I definitely felt like the first few performances, like a sort of Poundland version of Hannah, like doing my own take on it because I'd watched her with such admiration for the last 4 weeks, and Lauren and Dave, like I say, everybody.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was a great relief that it was received positively, and yeah, just a lesson in diving in and trusting yourself and knowing that a lot as wild and high octane as it can be, it's such a gift to be able to do it. I feel so lucky and grateful. Yeah.
And how do you kind of mentally maintain yourself? As you say it's been a bit of a whirlwind. How do you kind of unwind away from the show?
Oh, great question. Well, I'm sort of living like a nun at the moment because the show's a big thing. So I'm really taking care of my voice and having a lot of downtime in the day. But just spending time with my partner and my friends. Yeah, when I need a little bit of a decompress. But my brain is still like a popcorn machine. And I'm somebody that when I'm in a show, I kind of go into show mode. My partner's a writer, but he always laughs because he's like, as soon as you start rehearsals, it's like you're locked in. And I will sort of do in 10 business weeks, like, because that's where my kind of focus is. So I will unwind, but I think I am somebody that really likes to kind of lock into something for the time because as actors, we never really know when the next job is coming. So I never want it to like just whoop, in a whirlwind. So yeah.
If you could ask Zelda a question about her life, what would you choose to ask her?
Oh my goodness, that's such a good question. Heck, what would I ask her? Well, I think it would change every week because I have new thoughts. One thing that occurred to me last week was their love, F Scott and her love was such a like Bonnie and Clyde kind of romance. Like they couldn't live with each other and couldn't live without each other. And you see that in the letters that they wrote back and forth to each other from when she was sectioned basically in the sanatorium, where they still, even though they were separated, had this like incredible connection. And I suppose I would like to know how painful it was for her to be left there and if she felt like it was the right thing, because a lot has been written about this historically speaking. A lot of people would argue she wasn't schizophrenic. She was in fact bipolar and she was misdiagnosed. And a lot of stuff has been written about F. Scott as well, that he was like her, she was his prisoner basically. But who knows in the reality of what happened as the chips fell in real life. They've become sort of mythologized, haven't they, as a pair, these wild children. So I guess I'd just like to know how much of that it was true, and yeah, how it was to be sort of left there and be away from him and Scotty, because that last week was that part of the show that really affected me the most as an actor. But I mean, I'd like to ask her a lot of questions because it sounds like she had some wild old times in New York, especially.
Yes, I bet. And I ask these questions kind of to everyone I interview. What was the first piece of theatre that had that big impact on you that decided maybe this is for me?
Oh, that's a good question. There wasn't really one thing specifically, but I was really lucky that I went to a youth theatre that was attached to a big theatre in Stoke called the New Vic Theatre. They have a great youth theatre there. And when you were a young person, I think it was like under 18 tickets or something, you could go and see everything for free.
Yeah.
And I didn't come from a creative family at all. There was none of that really going on. So it meant that I just got to basically go to the theatre every 2 weeks and see whatever was on there at the time. And they had amazing touring productions, amazing in-house productions. So I saw like Lenny Henry as Othello, and then I would see their Christmas show, which had puppets and instruments and song, and then I saw the Weir. Like I would see like this real breadth of what theatre can be. So I think it was that more than anything, rather than one specific thing. But I think I must admit, when me and my mum came down to London once for a little weekend, and we went to see Miss Saigon, and I remember us both at the end being like, "Whoa!" So maybe that was the sort of big musical that sort of clobbered me over the head with it. But it was that experience of being at the New Vic and being so lucky to be able to see whatever I wanted, and all sorts was on. So yeah, it was that.
Amazing. And then if you were stranded on a desert island, you can take three musical theatre soundtracks with you. What are you taking with you?
Oh, three. It's not enough.
Yeah.
So I'd have to have all my bases covered, I think. I think I'd take Gypsy.
Mm-hmm.
That's one of my favourite scores. I think I'd have to take Merrily We Roll Along, or maybe Sunday in the Park. But then I'd want one for fun if I was stranded on a desert island. So maybe In the Heights, because that feels tropical
Yeah.
with music, or maybe like Legally Blonde, something like that, something fun to keep my spirits up.
Strong, strong choices. And then simply, what keeps you inspired? What kind of gives you drive to keep telling stories?
Good question again. I mean, I think all actors have that in them anyway. Even when they're not feeling inspired, you sort of it's sort of like an impulse in you. But it's going to the theatre, seeing stuff, watching movies, seeing my friends do like their wonderful work, or even just going to gigs or galleries, whatever it is, can be like, yeah, mostly going to the theatre, but I think you keep that little flame inside you even when you're not working. Yeah.
Yeah, of course. And then simply to wrap up this conversation, what would you hope someone takes away from seeing Beautiful Little Fool?
Oh, I hope that they are absolutely knocked sideways by Lauren Ward's performance at the end of the piece, which I think is there is not a dry eye in the house. Um, so yeah, I hope they go away feeling moved and like they've learned something about these real people and that we humanized them and like explored their relationships. And yeah, maybe leaving with an impulse to find out more about them, because I feel like what we do in the show is their lives were so much faster than what we have time to explore in an hour and a half. So with an impulse to like find out more about them, really. Yeah.
Amazing. Amy, it's been a pleasure to talk to you. The show runs until 28th of February, so everyone should run to get tickets immediately.
Yes.